Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi sangham saranam gacchāmi. Homage to the Buddha, supremely enlightened teacher. Homage to the Dhamma, the sacred path to enlightenment. And homage to the Sangha, the holy order, the Aryas, those who have experienced the taste of enlightenment. Homage to this triple gem. Homage to our respected teacher, most venerable Acharya Buddharakita, who has bestowed on us the Dhamma. Homage to Kassapa Bhante, who is our chief monk in Mahabodhi Society, Bengaluru Monastery. Homage to the Sangha, and with lot of metta for all the people who are online and those who are offline here. May the blessings of the Buddha surround your lives with very good health, well-being, and happiness. Today, I would like to speak on one very, very important, very often asked question, and also people wonder about it. When one hears about Buddhism, some people will question, is it relevant for me? Is it good for me? Is it useful for me? Or when some people are teaching, they themselves may feel, oh, should I teach only to Buddhists, or should I teach to this people or that people? This is natural, but one very, very important aspect of Buddhism that we have to understand is it is for all of us, the whole humanity, for the whole universe. Why? That I would like to mention. Why we should go to the Buddha, irrespective of who we are, whatever is our background. In the very first teaching of the Buddha, the Supreme Buddha gave the teachings 2,600 years ago. This is not a small time. But then how did it survive, and why did it survive? If we just look into it, a simple glance on the fundamentals of Buddha's teachings, it gives a very clear picture that this Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha, deals with our life. It deals with our happiness. It deals with our sufferings. How to manage this situation. So in the very first discourse, after his enlightenment under the holy Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, which is called Buddha Gaya or Bodh Gaya, after 2 months, the Supreme Buddha goes to Sarnath, Varanasi, near Varanasi, and there he teaches the 5 monks who were earlier serving him before his enlightenment, but then they left him and they were living in this a forest called Migadaya. And there, the Buddha walks all through 200-300 kilometers. And there he teaches the first teaching. And in this very, very first teaching, the Buddha explains something very unique. He says, everybody is in search of happiness. Search for happiness through different ways and means. There are people who are searching happiness, but they get confused with happiness and sense pleasures. Sense pleasures are taken as happiness and they run after that. If sense pleasures are happiness, then one has to keep on giving pleasant objects to our senses. Always beautiful objects to see, beautiful sounds to hear, or very pleasant smells or tastes or touch, or pleasant thoughts, mental objects. As long as these pleasant objects are there, so long one feels happy. If they are not there, then the opposite. So that is the normal belief for many people. That means sense objects are the deciding factor for happiness. Pleasant object is deciding factor for happiness. So many people, they believe and they run after these pleasures. But what happens? These pleasures are not permanent. So they just pass away. And once they pass away, what to do? Crave for more. Crave for the next one. That craving means dissatisfaction, unsatisfactory state of mind. And if one doesn't get that object, then one becomes angry. So either one is caught up in greed, seeking for more and more and more pleasant objects, or one becomes angry, dissatisfied. So that is why the Supreme Buddha says that is one extreme that is not going to solve our problems. That is not true happiness. You can't keep or you can't maintain all the time pleasant objects for all the six senses. How can you do that? It's very impractical, because everything is coming and going away. If they remained stationary, permanent, then okay, it was okay, but they don't remain permanent. So the Buddha says that is not solution. Then there is another group of people, they go to another extreme. And what is that extreme? That extreme is, oh, you starve the mind from pleasant objects. Instead, you give pain. How do you give pain? In the name of some practices and austerities and religious uh, observances and tapas, some kind of torture. Torturing the body, they believe mind will be free from suffering, mind will be purified. So this, because even in the time of the Buddha, this was there. Even today, it is there. The forms and formats for torturing the body, for torturing oneself are different, but they exist. The crucial thing is the belief that this kind of torturing, harming, giving pain to oneself is the path to salvation. So Supreme Buddha said, no, that is another extreme. So the world is swinging between these two extremes. Either one is caught up with sense objects, sense pleasures, or one is going to the other extreme of denying, trying to deny, and thereby thinking that that is the path to happiness. So the Supreme Buddha said, no, both are extremes. Take up the middle path which avoids, which goes beyond all kinds of extremes. Extremes means beliefs, some kind of viewpoint. Today you can see in the world how people are caught up in the net of beliefs and they are harming themselves and others. This belief becomes such big prison that one is not able to come out. Some people are in the belief that pain is solution. Give pain to oneself, give pain to others, killing, harming, wars. You can see many kinds of people justifying pain, suffering as solution for suffering. How can it be? Is it possible? Can you extinguish fire with more of very powerful gas or petrol, oil? It will only increase. So that is not possible. But there are people who believe like that. So these beliefs, these viewpoints, they become very strong. So the Buddha gave what is called middle path. And this middle path is very, very clear. Just listen to that and you will see how practical it is. Right understanding is the first factor of the middle path. There are 8 factors. It is called Noble Eightfold Path. Aryo Atthangiko Maggo. Samadhi, the first one is right understanding. Understand everything as it is, according to reality. Shouldn't we do that? Isn't it the right way? These viewpoints are exactly the opposite. Reality may be something, and viewpoint is something far, far away. So, the opposite of right understanding is wrong views, holding wrong views. Then second factor is right thought, right thinking. Shouldn't we think rightly? And what is this right thinking? Thoughts of loving kindness, compassion, sharing, giving, renouncing, detachment, anything that brings more and more complexities. So avoid such thoughts. Isn't it necessary for us? Then the third factor is right speech. Speak truthful words and good words. Then fourth is right action. Do good actions. Don't kill, but save. Don't steal, but share. Don't commit sexual misconduct, but have faith, confidence in each other among partners. Shouldn't we practice this right way of our living? Just see how the Buddha's path is dealing with our life. And then there is right livelihood. Don't do something, don't take up some work which harms living beings, some people. Do something which is beneficial. Shouldn't we do that? And then right effort, put right effort. What is right effort? Remove unwholesome, bring wholesome. That's all. Right effort. Anything that is bad in the mind, remove it, bring something positive. Right mindfulness. Next one, to develop right kind of awareness, mindfulness, so that we are able to see the truth. Then right meditative concentration. So that is the power of the mind. With that power, we can manage our mind and elevate it to higher levels. So this eightfold path, now tell me, who doesn't need it? Everybody. Everybody needs it. Everybody can practice it. Everybody can experience the fruits of practicing this Noble Eightfold Path. The fruit is freedom, freedom from sufferings, freedom from all kinds of complexities, all kinds of bondages, all kinds of the causes that can bring our births in very, very unfortunate planes of existence. So if we can find happiness here and now, happiness hereafter, and along with happiness, we can progress towards enlightenment. So who doesn't need it? Somebody who is in big tension and worry. Why there is tension and worry? Because something which is worthwhile to be performed, something which should have been done is not done. Say you have to help somebody and you didn't help and that person is dead. Then you start worrying. You wanted to say something, but you could not say. Anything good you want to do it as early as possible. Don't repent later on. Isn't it? So, tensions and worries come because of this. And something bad that is done to think again and again and again instead of solving it, thinking, worrying. So the Supreme Buddha says, oh, come out of this worries, these tensions. How do you do that? By knowing the tension and worry itself, the nature of these very problems. The Buddha is the teacher who taught us to face the problems by finding out what is the problem, the cause of problem, and removing it. Very practical. Isn't it needed for everybody in this world? One may belong to any nation or to any country or any religion or no religion. Let that person be anybody. But these are the basic human problems. And these are the teachings with human solutions. Absolutely no limit of any religion or any country or any language or any race or anybody. Anybody can do this. Just like problems are universal, the Buddha's teachings, the solutions are universal too. So this is whom this teaching is for. This teaching is for everybody because people go through these problems. So the Buddha teaches moral life, a life which is conducive, first of all, to bring satisfaction to one's own heart. Moral life brings satisfaction to one's own heart. And this satisfaction is very important because from this satisfaction, joy arises. Oh, I have lived good life. Today I have not harmed anybody in my body, speech or mind. Bodily action, verbal action, mental action. What a wonderful day that is. So that is moral life. The Buddha tells how to improve because of unawareness, because of ignorance, because of the power of defilement, like anger, hatred, or greed. Sometimes one may commit some wrongs. The Buddha says, okay, understand that also. That wrong also you face it, understand it, accept it, and overcome it. Go beyond it. This is the way. It is not running away from the problems. It is facing the problems with calm mind. If you have problem in front of you, you get confused and you start worrying and then you are upset. No. The Buddha teaches us how to calm down ourselves and watch our mind, watch our actions. What a wonderful teaching, isn't it? So this is the teaching for everybody. If everybody looks into their own hearts, there are immense positive qualities, so beautiful qualities in our hearts. And also there are negative qualities. So it is possible. Only if you see it clearly, then it is possible to remove the negative and increase the positive. So the art of watching our hearts is what the Buddha teaches, which is normally known as meditation or contemplation. Not one or two different kinds. Just like there are so many kinds of defilements, causes of our problems, the Buddha has taught so many solutions, different kinds of solutions. Isn't it a need of the hour for everybody? So Buddha's teaching is for everybody. We can't call it as just religion in the sense, in the common sense, the word religion is used in the word. That the meaning of religion is has very limited significance when it comes to Buddha's teachings. When you say religion means a moral way of life, a good way of life, harmonious way of life, and to progress towards higher levels, then the Buddha's teaching can be called as religion. But if religion is meant for certain set of belief systems, certain set of views and rites and rituals, then Buddhism goes beyond that, and it is not what is Buddhism. So Buddhism is path of enlightenment, this eightfold path, what we saw. It is the path of happiness. If we are not able to live peaceful and happy life here and now, what is the use? Problems are there. Problems will be there, coming from inside, coming from outside. But how to manage those problems? And also there are so many good things coming from inside, coming from outside. How to manage them? So this is what Buddhism teaches us. So we have to develop our moral life, our mental life, and overcome worries and tensions and confusions. Confusions about this, confusions about that. Every aspect, everything that you hear or see, the first question is, oh, is it right or is it not right? Confusion starts. How are you going to judge? If your wisdom is there, then it's easy to judge correctly. If wisdom is not there, either you judge wrongly or you will fall into confusion, without any judgment, in a confused state of mind. Most of the things, with very small things also. If you are lying down and you want to get up and walk, but then again confusion starts. What should I do now? Should I go there? Should I go here? Or should I read? Or, you see, every moment to moment, with small things, confusions can arise. But if you develop mindfulness, if you develop clarity, then it's not a problem at all. Every moment, you are making your life into a beautiful, productive part of our life. It has to produce something. What is that it has to produce? It has to produce, first of all, some amount of happiness, harmony with others. You see, if there is confusion, doubt, then just imagine what happens to relationships. Do you want to live with quarreling and fighting with your near and dear ones, with your family, with your friends, or with your colleagues, with your neighbors, in your society, in your country? Or you want to live a harmonious life? It starts from this confused state of mind. So when we have this clarity, with this Noble Eightfold Path, we have clarity. What is right action? What is right speech? What is right thinking? How to put right effort? How to develop awareness, concentration, and ultimately wisdom. With that clarity, we can see very well how something is wholesome, something is unwholesome. Then we can avoid unwholesome. So knowing the Buddha's teachings means knowing the truth of life, knowing the path of happiness, knowing the management of our life, knowing the management of our mind, knowing the management of this moment. Don't we need that? Who on earth doesn't need it? Everybody. So this is Buddhism. And once we go deeper and deeper after studying, after contemplating, after meditating, we can go deeper and understand deeply the, the realities of this, the teachings, the realities of life. So, if you are caught up with small issues, and with that small issue you are making a huge issue. It is said, no, mountain out of mole. Small things become so big issues. Recently, I was I heard from one of our devotees that because of some small trivial issues, one young lady just married, she committed suicide. And the parents, they don't even know why, because everything seemed to be so nice. Well, there was no any financial problem or relationship problem or anything. Maybe some very trivial uh, issue with somebody else or some, we don't know. But to make a big issue out of small problems, huh? People, most of the people create problem out of no problem or big problem out of small problem. But if you are following the Buddha's teaching, then you will make big problem into small problem and small problem into no problem. That is the art the Buddha teaches. This can happen when we understand the very fundamental teachings, fundamental realities that the Buddha teaches about our life, about our body, about our mind, about the relationship between body and mind. With body and mind, that we perform actions, kamma, and this kamma, how they become causes and conditions for the things to happen, for happiness to increase or decrease, suffering to increase and decrease. If we know these fundamental things, then really life becomes very simple, pleasant, no matter what kind of surrounding situations, even if it is unpleasant situation, even if there are unpleasant people around, forget about outside unpleasant things. Even if there are unpleasant states of mind, even if you become angry and just practice little mindfulness, you will know that you are angry. So that awareness, that knowing itself will help you to overcome. So any problem can be overcome. The Buddha says, all problems can be overcome. If that was not possible, I wouldn't have taught you. Since the change is possible from ignorance, from suffering towards happiness, that is why I have taught this Dhamma. So that is possible. And people from worst conditions, like Patachara, a lady who lost everybody of her beloved people within one night, her husband, her two children, her father and mother and brother. Oh, but she went mad. But then, out of boundless compassion of Lord Buddha, Kisa Gotami, who lost her only child, she was so much upset. She became enlightened person. A bandit like Angulimala became an enlightened Arhanta Thera. a very venerable person. Not one or two examples, thousands and thousands of examples. So, my dears, this fundamental law of karma, the cause and effect, the actions we do, the results that come in this life, the results that come in next life, the births, how we can get future births in the suffering state or in happy state, and how to go beyond that and ultimately become free from all these complexes. So the Buddhism is not just it doesn't deal with not just these problems to overcome now and fix them. No, it also deals with ultimate causes, how to remove the ultimate causes of all sufferings and how to bring ultimate happiness, freedom from all bondages. What are these bondages? Bondages are ignorance. Bondages are greed and hatred and arrogance, and bondages are stinginess or jealousy or ego or selfishness. These are the things which bind us to suffering. The opposites, they free us. And there is a state called enlightenment. That state through which you can understand and experience freedom. The freedom which is called Nibbana, freedom from all kinds of bondages. So you can see the Buddhism gives meaning for life here and now, how we should live, how we should think, how should we speak or work, how we should live in society, put effort, earn properly, spend properly, share properly, how we should live with family life. So many discourses the Buddha teaches. Harmonious family life, then harmonious management of your finances, your wealth. The Buddha advises, because mismanagement can create lot of havoc in one's life. These daily things we have to do in such a way that they also become a path to enlightenment. So for daily life management, the Buddha's teachings are useful. And for ultimate goal also, the Buddha's teachings are useful. So if we see all these things, then the Buddha, in the very beginning year, he came to Sarnath, he gave this discourse. The 5 monks became arahants, enlightened people, and then another 54 joined. So in the next 3 months, there were 60 arahant monks, and he teaches them, Charata bhikkhave charikang. O monks, go. Bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya. For the welfare and happiness of many, many, many people. Attaya hitaya sukhaya deva manusanang. Not just happiness and welfare of human beings, for all, for including divine beings, human beings and all beings. And the Buddha advises, go and teach this Dhamma, this pure Dhamma. Adi Kalyanang, Majje Kalyanang, Paryosana Kalyanang. That which is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Everywhere, every step, it will not fail you. It will only give you success and progress. And the Buddha said, there are people with little dust in their eyes. You just clean it up. They can also see the truth. They can also overcome problems, and they can also live happily. So Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya, for the happiness and welfare of many, many, many people, and including other beings. So here we got the answer in the very beginning of the Buddha's mission of compassion for all. And every day we share merits. Whatever good I have done, we have done, may it come to all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering, like that. So, this is the spirit of uh, Buddhism, and I hope this gives some clarity. Buddhism is for all. Buddhism is for all times, for all people, everywhere. So with this, I conclude. May the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha surround your lives with well-being, happiness, good health, and wisdom. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings experience happiness. May all beings progress towards enlightenment and ultimately experience the bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.